So picture this. The people of Israel are gathered at the foot of Mount Sinai. The mountain is literally trembling, and the air is just thick with the presence of God. He has just delivered the Ten Commandments, these massive foundational principles for life. But what happens now?
I mean, think about it. You shall not murder. You shall not steal. These are the big headlines, right? They're like the Constitution. But how do you actually apply them to the messy, complicated reality of everyday life? How do these huge moral statements work when you're building a brand new nation of former slaves from the ground up?
Okay, let's get into it, because the answer starts right here in Exodus chapter 21. This is where God gets really specific. If the Ten Commandments are the Constitution, then what we're about to see is the case law, the nitty-gritty, on-the-ground application of His divine justice.
And you got to catch the very first words here. These are the judgments. See, these aren't just, helpful tips or good ideas. This is God Himself setting up the foundational legal structure for a holy and just community. A community that would look radically different from the brutal, oppressive society they just escaped in Egypt.
So what does God talk about first? Is it property, land disputes, military rules? Nope. The very first set of specific laws is about people. And this, right from the start, shows us a core principle of God's heart. His justice begins and ends with the incredible value and dignity of human beings.
Now, take a look at this. This really shows just how revolutionary these laws were for their time. On the right, you see what was common practice back then. A servant was basically property for life. But look at the column for Exodus 21. Under God's law, a Hebrew servant served for 6 years, and then they were free. They had personal rights. They even had the choice to stay if they wanted to. And, this is huge, they had legal protection from abuse. This was a system that had dignity built right into its DNA.
Okay, let's keep going, because it just keeps building. From the laws about servants, the chapter moves on to personal injury. And right away, God introduces a legal idea that is just fundamental to our own sense of justice today. The crucial difference between intent and an accident. So the key is all in the language God uses. For premeditated murder, the text says someone comes presumptuously upon his neighbor to slay him with guile. That speaks to a cold, malicious heart. But for an accidental death, the wording is, "But God deliver him into his hand," which acknowledges this tragic outcome happened without evil intent. And the consequences? They're worlds apart. One is a capital crime. For the other, God literally provides a place of refuge, a safe city. It shows us that God's law looks deeper than just the action. It actually examines the heart.
And this deep concern for life is just woven all through the chapter. You see severe penalties for striking or even cursing your parents, which upholds the family. Kidnapping someone to sell them was a capital offense, a powerful statement that people are never, ever property. There are even specific laws protecting pregnant women and a clear system for financial restitution to make things right when someone gets hurt. It's incredibly comprehensive.
All right, here we are. We've come to what is probably the most famous and almost certainly the most misunderstood phrase in this entire chapter. Most people think they know what an eye for an eye means, but what it actually is, well, it's a stunning principle of justice.
Yeah, hearing it read just like that, it sounds pretty raw, doesn't it? It's direct, it sounds maybe even brutal. Eye for eye, tooth for tooth. You can see why people might get the wrong idea.
So, is that what this is? Is God giving people a divine permission slip to go out and take personal violent revenge? If somebody hurts you, are you supposed to go and hurt them back in the exact same way?
No, absolutely not. And this is the point we cannot miss. This principle, known in legal terms as lex talionis, wasn't a license for revenge, it was a radical limit on revenge. In a world of blood feuds where a minor insult could spiral into generations of killing, God steps in and puts a ceiling on it. He's saying the punishment, administered by a public court, by the way, not by an individual, must fit the crime. It can't exceed it. This was a revolutionary guardrail against rage and escalation. And more often than not, this meant financial payment to make the victim whole, not literal eye gouging. The goal was restoring justice, not just repeating violence.
Now, these principles of justice aren't just for things people do on purpose. Let's see how this same logic gets applied to situations of negligence and personal responsibility.
And to teach this, God uses this incredibly practical, memorable example that anyone in an agricultural society would get instantly, the case of the goring ox.
So let's walk through it. An ox, which is normally a work animal, suddenly goes wild and kills someone. What happens? Well, step one, the ox itself is stoned. Justice is served on the source of the harm. But what about the owner? This is where the wisdom of the law just shines. Step 2 asks the all-important question: did the owner know his ox was violent? If the answer is no, it's a horrible tragedy, but the owner is considered blameless. But if the answer is yes, if neighbors had warned him about it and he didn't bother to pen it up, then the responsibility is all on him. It's a timeless principle. We are accountable not just for our actions, but for our negligent inaction too.
So when we step back and look at Exodus 21 as a whole, what do we really see? It is so much more than just some ancient, dusty law code. It's a divine blueprint for community. It's God's vision for how His redeemed people should live together.
And these are the pillars holding up that entire blueprint: the dignity of every single human being, the sanctity of life, and the fact that our intentions matter. Justice that is proportional, not just vengeful, the critical importance of personal responsibility, and finally, the goal of restitution. It's not just about punishing the bad guy, it's about making things right for the person who was hurt. I mean, these aren't just old rules, they're timeless principles for any society that truly wants to be just.
And that's what this chapter really is in the end. It's a profound gift. It's not a burden. It's God's loving instruction. A father teaching his children how to live together in a way that reflects his own holy and just character. It's the practical how-to guide for being a community that has been set free.
And that kind of leaves us with a final thought to chew on. If God cared so deeply about these specific details for a brand new nation thousands of years ago, what are the details He cares about in our lives right here today?